How's it going, Gator fans? I'm Fernando Juncadella. That's Landon Watnick. We're here at the Swamp where the Florida Spring football schedule came to a close this past Friday with the orange and blue debut. Landon, what'd you think of the scrimmage?
Well, there were certainly a lot of fireworks. I mean, you saw a lot of explosive plays from the offense, especially when Luke Del Rio was with the first string unit on the blue squad. Finished with 176 yards and 2 touchdowns on 10 of 11 passing. Looked very impressive, comfortable in the pocket. You could just tell that he's very familiar with the system. And then the kicking game was also a highlight as well. Eddie Pinheiro made a bunch of attempts from 50-plus yards. And then the pass rush, too. I mean, that defensive line got a lot of pressure off the edges. So a lot of really positive takeaways from this orange and blue debut. Let's
look at the tape. All right, Landon, everybody wants to know, who is leading this quarterback battle heading into the summer?
Well, that's certainly Luke Del Rio. I mean, he overall had the best spring performance. Entered this quarterback battle with a leg up from the get-go, so he's definitely the favorite to win the job at this point. As the number 2 at the position, you got to go with Austin Appleby just based on experience alone from his playing days at Purdue. Actually showed some nice things early on in the game, leading the second-team offense against the first-string defense. Led the team, to points. So I mean, that's a positive. But obviously, Del Rio definitely looks more polished than Appleby at this point. And then you got Franks and Trask. Obviously, redshirting would be ideal for both of them. But I mean, Trask actually had a pretty impressive spring. Looked good in the spring game too. Showed off a strong arm, some athleticism as well. But I mean, Franks had a rougher go, threw 3 picks, had that touchdown drive at the end. But I mean, those guys would probably be better off redshirting if Florida had it in the most ideal situation. But right now, to answer your question, Del Rio is the guy.
If you were to pick 3 guys that really absolutely helped their stock this spring, who would they be?
Well, first off, you got to go with Dre Massey. I mean, Jim McElwain even made a Wally Pipp reference regarding Massey taking over that slot position with Brandon Powell injured and Alvin Bailey also dealing with some back issues. So Dre Massey really had an impressive spring, and then you got guys like Jordan Cronkrite, who started off as the first-string running back from day one and really held on to that job, was a steady, consistent performer. And then, too, Kayvonis Davis. I mean, while Jordan Sherritt was out with that hamstring injury, Davis stepped in and produced and was really, just a good contributor on that end. So he's going to be, a guy who rotates often into rotation next year.
Obviously, still questions around the team. What questions need to be answered during the summer before the fall semester?
Well, certainly you have to look at the offensive line and pass protection. I mean, in the spring game, both squads combined for 5 sacks allowed, and that's just can't happen. I mean, especially at the offensive tackle spot. Fred Johnson's a little bit of a liability in pass protection. And then the depth overall, just with that second-string unit, Kavaris Harkless and Andrew Mike, isn't really that promising. So Florida's got to really shore up there. And then looking at, just the depth also at a linebacker and in the secondary, I mean, is Florida going to get some of those younger guys to really step up and contribute in the rotation? I mean, you saw Kylan Johnson really have a good spring showing. I mean, if he could, end up being a regular in that rotation, that would be a huge help for Florida. And then younger guys, too, like Chauncey Gardner, Arthur Burnett, and Chris Williamson may be called upon. So that's another question that needs to be addressed eventually. And then, too, I mean, obviously the whole issue with Antonio Callaway. I mean, is he going to be back? Is he going to return to the team? I mean, if Florida misses out on him, I mean, that's a huge playmaker that this offense is losing heading into the 2016 season. So those are probably my 3 biggest questions right now.
Well, guys, we hope you enjoy our last spring recap video. Be sure to look at Landon's film analysis from this past weekend, looking at the offensive and defensive side of the ball. And always stick to InsideTheGators.com for the best Florida football content around. That's Landon Watnick. I'm Fernando Juncadella. Have a good one, guys.